Last year, when I was here, we shared new data about the usage of generative AI in platforms and travel. Travelers were using an AI platform for their trips, were 11% in the UK, 9% in France, and 7% in Germany. Before getting started, let's take a quick poll. So please take out your phones, scan the QR code on the screen, and select which country you think had the biggest growth in their use of generative AI among leisure travelers: UK, France, or Germany. We'll come back to this in a little bit. First, I want to ground us in a little reality. In a world digitizing everything possible and a fear that AI is going to take our jobs, most travelers actually still prefer a human interaction for many aspects of their trips, from planning to while in destination. And I don't think this graphic is going to unearth the jobs of graphic designers, because I asked AI to create it, depicting the challenge between human and digital interaction. So, graphic artists, I think you're safe. At best, 47% prefer digital interaction versus human for things such as checking in, making reservations, or getting directions. And that's the highest level of preference across these different types of interactions in travel. Only 29% would prefer a digital interaction for that experience of taking tours. They still want a real person for that. And travelers are just slightly more okay with getting customer support through a human, and 3 out of 4 want a human to help them in that situation when they have a trip disruption. And while lower among the drivers impacting a booking channel decision, travelers put a higher value on the personal touch of human agents when finalizing their travel bookings. In this particular case, it's highly likely because they are sharing personal and credit card information. But as we saw on the previous slide, travelers aren't ready to give up that human touch. Now, last year, we talked about Gen AI. We were starting at a very basic level of awareness, and specifically on standalone platforms. And to be honest, there wasn't a whole lot of movement in awareness among travelers in the past 12 months. It was already nearing saturation among younger travelers. So maybe the hype is waning for those outside of this room. It's hard to say. But I suspect more people have used it than realized, and this year we are going to take a broader look at Gen AI in the trip planning process. So when it comes to using Gen AI platforms like ChatGPT or Google Gemini for anything, not just travel, there was a 14 to 19% growth year over year in these markets. Not staggering. And looking at the uses of Gen AI for travel, not necessarily on a specific platform, it's still low, with less than a quarter of travelers using it, leaving plenty of room for growth for those of us in this room and the industry. And with numbers like these, you can test new tools, fail quick, and test something new, and your brands will not be tarnished by people having a less than desired experience with Gen AI. Now, we know that Gen AI can be accessed by travelers in a number of ways: built into our browsers, as AI assistants on supplier sites, standalone platforms, and as part of general search results. Now, pausing for a moment to look at general search on platforms such as Google or Bing, in trip planning, it is one of the most used resources. Now, 46 to 54% of travelers use it for trip components like hotels and flights. And 31 to 38% use it for things like looking for destination activities. Now, looking deeper into how general search is used, it's not a surprise how many travelers are using it for user reviews, but we're not really interested in that today. What is interesting is that Gen AI is at parity with paid search, which has been around since the 90s. Now, I'm sure the placement at the top of the page has a great impact on this, but depending upon your query, neither of these are always presented in the search results. Further, there are probably a number of those that are unsure of what they actually use that did use a Gen AI search result. Again, likely due to the placement. So it's no longer important to just optimize for organic and paid search. You need to be ready for AI crawlers and AI-generated results. They are there and being used regardless if they're being clicked on or not. France went from 9 to 13%, so that was the biggest growth in using a Gen AI platform for travel. The Germans continue to be the most hesitant. The cultural differences in Germany with regards to privacy and regulation likely have an impact on the slower start. I don't really expect any of these countries to have a sudden increase in usage, as it's still extremely low among all travelers. And in a world where you can speak a message to send a text, why not speak your inquiry into Gen AI? Doing this varies a bit by country, but travelers are doing it. So when you're building solutions, I would incorporate this into your functionality. British and German travelers are using Gen AI for more of their trips over the past 12 months compared to the prior 12. France appears to have used it for a little less, but regardless, right now, travelers still see it as experimental. For context, these travelers take 3 or more trips a year. So as the experience gets better and travelers get more comfortable, I'm confident they will turn to Gen AI for more of their trips. So yes, usage is still low, especially when compared to all the other resources available to travelers when planning and researching their trips. But Gen AI has experienced notable growth among travelers. It's more than doubled in the UK. It grew by 60% in France and 75% in Germany. Now, most travelers use Gen AI for ideas on where to go and what to do. It's less common in these regions for researching trip components, such as flights and hotels. And this makes sense. It's lower risk, right? They're just getting ideas and inspiration. They're not having to put money on the line. Now, despite 28 to 54% of travelers using Gen AI to get ideas on where to go, they aren't willing to go as far as say it was influential in selecting their destination. Travelers turn to Gen AI for researching, but did they ultimately make a trip decision, convert, if you will? The potential to influence is clearly there. 2 to 3 out of 10 users said they made a trip decision based on recommendations they obtained from Gen AI. Now, this is important for implementation. Make sure it is done in a way that travelers feel comfortable and the information is reliable. Now, little did we realize just a few short years ago that we would be walking around with a personal assistant, a digital one that is. And when it comes to assisting during the trip, travelers are turning to Gen AI for education, recommendations, and translations. And this is just the beginning. I recently had the opportunity to try a pair of smart glasses. And while it still has a long way to go, as it was a bit of hit or miss, it was interesting to just look at something and say, hey, Meta, tell me about this. So travelers are finding Gen AI useful, easy, and fun. And even on the lower end of creative and tailored, it's more positive than not. And so in an industry where personalization is extremely important, being viewed as a tool that can be tailored to each individual's expectations is critical. And I think it's interesting that last year in the US, accuracy was actually below tailored. So I'm eager to see the US results and see if it's climbed up on the list. But we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to trusting the results of Gen AI. And as of now, it isn't getting better. But when Gen AI sits beside highly trusted other resources, its shortcomings stand out. Last year at this time, we also didn't have the EU AI Act that makes platforms flag the limitations of AI, such as Google's warning that AI may include mistakes. Now, looking to the future and what Gen AI tools travelers expect to see available and use, it's interesting to see that despite preferring a human to chat with, a quarter to more than a third expect Gen AI chat features on travel sites. And based on other data we saw, I assume it isn't for booking or trip disruptions, but rather general inquiries. That said, booking isn't out of the question either. Consumers' comfort with making purchases online took time to grow, and as I'm sure it will as well for Gen AI once it's available. I believe the adoption curve will be a little more gradual than exponential, especially in Europe. Governance will be key to travelers putting their trust in AI resources to take that next step to book. And here to assist travelers and suppliers, another transformative technology on the horizon is the digital identity wallet. Like so many technologies, this isn't new. Fun little fact, Estonia has had an electronic ID system for over 20 years. And awareness levels among these countries is fairly high, especially in the UK at 73%. A quarter or more indicated they used a digital wallet. And for reference, awareness is only slightly lower than that of Gen AI. But despite higher levels of awareness of digital identity wallets, only 21 to 26% are at least somewhat familiar with the European Union's digital identity wallet. Awareness will likely increase quickly as it's rolled out, and while it won't be legal requirement for travelers or citizens, it will be for the industry suppliers. So promoting the benefits to the traveler will further the adoption of it and have a positive impact on all of us. And those familiar with it acknowledge that it will eliminate the need for paper documents, provide more security that everyone seeks, and will make traveling cross borders more seamless. And there'll be very little hesitation when it comes to adopting the EU's digital identity wallet for travel. European travelers are highly interested in this tool, which aims to streamline the identity verification process across borders, ease the check-in process, and enhance security. So when preparing to integrate into your process, think about those features that will most benefit the traveler and create a seamless experience. So just to wrap up, search is not the same as it was 2 years ago. When travelers turn to general search AI overviews, we're at the top of the page. Google, for example, is investing a lot into AI overviews for travel, and according to data from BrightEdge, AI overviews on Google for travel are up 108%. Travelers are searching things to do in Barcelona, for example, and there's a number of travelers that we can't ignore, know what these results represent, and acknowledge they use the content when researching their trip components. And I'm sure there are even more using this content and don't know it. Optimizing your sites for content for AI overviews in search will be paramount to your findability and should already be a key component of your marketing strategies. The AI train has long left the station. It's picking up a few travelers along the way, but the majority are still on the platform, at the station, not the tool. Those on board are enjoying the journey. They are testing it more so for inspiration, such as ideas on where to go and what to do, as opposed to more pragmatic decisions like researching hotels and flights. And today, the benefits of AI for us here in this room is the stuff behind the scenes, the things the end users don't see. It took travelers about 5 to 7 years to gain traction for booking online. History and innovation timelines would suggest that booking using an AI platform should be less than that, but we clearly have trust, accuracy, and data privacy to overcome. I know integration is well on its way. Implementation is going to be the key, so perhaps not jumping directly to an AI assistant booking for travel, and rather leaving the traveler in the engineer's seat, feeling in control, is a good initial step. Good recommendations will go a long way to building that traveler trust. And the digital wallet is seen as a future enabler for frictionless travel, where passports and physical IDs can be replaced with digital equivalents verified instantly at airports, hotels, and car rentals. Now, this could significantly reduce wait times and improve traveler satisfaction. Adoption rates are expected to surge once it's available. And while traveler suppliers must comply, travelers do not. And so, but the benefits for everyone in implementing it in a way that delights travelers will be critical. Let's take one last poll. Everybody take this poll by scanning the QR code. So I've heard a couple of times over the past couple of days that people aren't turning to Google first anymore. They go to Gen AI. So this made me wonder, in conversation, how will people refer to querying Gen AI? AI it? Ask Gen? Conjure it? Something else? Or maybe it's not actually going to be replaced at all. I don't have the answer to this, but maybe this time next year we will. Please check out our other consumer insights in Phocuswright's Europe 2025 Traveler Trend Report, now available, and coming soon, an update on our travelers' use of Gen AI. Thank you.